All right, folks. So welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. As I am looking at the live chat, very lively today. How about that? This is the Four Verticals podcast. Finally back after mostly a week, if you will. Did a special episode on last Tuesday for our that. Go look at that. By the way, a lot of moves in the coaching carousel this weekend. Neil Brown is out at West Virginia. How about that? A couple other coaches are on the move. Not surprising. There are coaches on the move, but the Neil Brown run's interesting. I don't know. That one is a fascinating move. Obviously, he was on a hot seat last year, and people thought he was going to be fired, up until including me. And it was just delayed a year. So interesting about that. We will touch on that. Probably we'll touch on the coaching carousel. Don't worry. We'll discuss the moves that Florida State is making or has made. I see Eagle smiles on. Not the one in the chat. I know that's not a real version of him. I know that's not him. Much to the chagrin of some of you in the live chat right now. If you're listening to this, by the way, on the replay or on the audio version, um, just ignore this part. But I'd like to have fun with you guys. There's a lot of people in the chat too. Good crowd. Um, don't really want to turn into Josh Pate in terms of reading the towns, but we have some folks checking in. Some of you are from Dallas, Powell, Wyoming. This fake Gus Malzahn claimed he's in Tallahassee, Florida. Disregard that. There's also supposedly someone from Tokyo, Japan. Doubt that. Because of course anyone can make up like town names and whatnot. So I don't think all these are true, but Powell, Wyoming is an interesting one. Powell is a place that if you watch a certain YouTuber who may have called that place before, might be overseas, then you know the reference. But judging by the profile picture, said person who says they are from Powell, Wyoming, and may not be there, but regardless, if wherever you're watching this from, or what time you're watching this, welcome in. It's a week 14 reaction, every week. Also have a conference championship previews and a Buccaneers Panthers reaction. So how about that? Just a quick note. Skeleton Crew, the new Star Wars show, came out yesterday. I didn't watch it because I was busy. Some things behind the scenes. I will try to watch it before Thursday's show, so I will give my reaction to it. I was tuning in, by the way, to Dev Nerds, Josh's other stream, not to be confused with me. His stream earlier talked about it. Definitely some mixed opinions from him, since me and his opinions do align mostly. But interestingly, getting some interesting, good enough feedback from the show, which is surprising to me because they withheld the review embargo till the day of the show, which historically that usually is like, oh, but not the disaster people thought it was going to be, at least so far, which is interesting. Now that sounds like kind of cliche and kind of low-hanging fruit, but kind of is. I did not like the fact that they were moving up the release date, the fact that they were withholding reviews until like the show actually literally comes out when it's the servers on Disney Plus update. But interestingly, not the disaster it was looking to be, which is fascinating. So I'll check it out later, and I'll give my full thoughts on it, I guess, on Thursday. And then I guess going forward, I believe it comes out going forward on Wednesdays, so it makes sense to do it on Thursday. So it's weird, but yeah, they did move up the release date to last night on Monday, 9 o'clock. Not gonna be the same going forward. I believe it's gonna be Wednesdays going forward. I think so. Just some housekeeping rules there. If you are new here, some of you in the live chat are not new, but if you are listening to this on the on the replay and whatnot, welcome in. As I've been saying in the chat, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the stream. Nothing happens. I don't, knock on your door and force you to sign a form. I don't send you guys emails or phone calls or text messages or whatnot. I don't send you anything in the mail. I don't think. I don't like show up to your house either. I just said that. But just to clarify, I don't do that. So nothing happens, and you can hit the notification bell on YouTube. You can also subscribe to the podcast feed on Spotify, where we've been doing the show for a long time. And that's it. That's all I'm asking for you guys. I know it's Christmas now. I know it's technically now the season of Christmas, even though it literally started back in, Mariah Carey got out of her like iceberg fridge or whatever back weeks ago, but or about a month ago. So it's anyway. I still have to say, welcome in. Got a big reaction show and a big prediction show and some thoughts on the Buccaneers Panthers game. How about that? A wild finish. As we start in here, I'm gonna check real quick just to make sure we are live and the audio is working today. Um, some here to feedback here. Again, just ignore this. Going to double check, make sure we are actually on the air. And okay, so we are on. You guys don't know the first ever time we actually did YouTube and recording for the Spotify version, the audio version. The sound didn't work on YouTube, and it did work for Spotify. So I double checked that just to make sure we're okay. Um, so all that boilerplate stuff out of the way here, let's actually get into the show because I'm sure that's what all of you guys are here for. So it may as well get started. And where else would we start than Columbus, Ohio, where Ohio? Oh no, wait, no, minute. Ohio State, Michigan won again, 13-10. Insert the sad Hulk music from the '60s Hulk show. This is pretty devastating for Ohio State. Not for a season. They will be in the playoff. I will have it on full authority. They will be. Um, they still have all of their postseason aspirations intact, but a different set of disappointment is in the fan base. But as the rule, per most shows, we talk about the winner first and then the loser. Um, not much to really say about on the Michigan side of this because we did the preview last week, and it was you guys remember that show? That was like me stuffing in reactions to week 12 or excuse me, week 13 and week 14 predictions. But if I recall, some of the things we talked about during last week's show, the full show we did, not including the extra pod, is that talked about what Michigan had to do, talked about the defense, Mason and Graham and Kenneth Grant, the two best defensive linemen in all football, college football, not the NFL. And there's clearly better guys in the NFL than in college. But those two guys needed to have an impact. That defense needed to leave their mark on this game. They certainly did. They held Ohio State to field goals and only scored one touchdown. So you do that most of the time out of 10, you will win that game. David Storm was the quarterback. Okay, threw two really bad interceptions, but dude did what he needed to do. Can't say enough about that. Um, even despite the two turnovers, they won the game. They made the least mistakes. They looked physical. Michigan did, and what's fascinating and what's so alarming about Ohio State from that viewpoint. You can watch this game and not know anything about Michigan. You cannot know about who the head coach is. You cannot know, who the personnel is. You can watch the game going in with knowing none of that stuff or taking that stuff out. But just look at the box score. You can go, huh, this looks like Michigan last year against Ohio State. Well, it kind of is. It's sort of like the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. It's like you're seeing the same events over and over again, but it's real. It's reality. It's not a movie. It's reality. Um, I don't know what's to really say. I mean, congrats to Sharon Moore in Michigan. It's been a crazy week for them too. I mean, you have them getting Bryce Underwood. And by the way, they also splattered Northwestern last week, the week before. So congrats. You got Bryce Underwood from LSU to commit, and then you beat Michigan, your rival, for the fourth straight year. A great end to the season for them. They'll go to their bowl game. They are now 7-5, I believe, a chance to win 8 games after the way the season was looking and me saying he was an ex Zach Arnett. Now, look, I still have my concerns about Sharon Moore. That doesn't necessarily, distinguish any of that. I'm still concerned, but I'll be lying to you if if I were a Michigan fan, I'll be a little more excited given the fact you have Bryson Wood coming in. You get Sharon Moore's biggest win as a head coach on interim, full-time head coach, biggest win of his career. And two, the biggest upset of the season, too, is this Ohio State closed at like a 21-point favorite or something like that, according to FanDuel. I didn't check the numbers that much when I was away. But yeah, that's one of the biggest upsets of the year, and it came in the most shocking way. Going back to last week's show, much like everyone else, I picked Ohio State to win and cover. I feel like it was the emotional response, the revenge factor from what's happened the past 3 years. It felt like they were building towards this, the $20 million in NIL. You brought in Quinshon Judkins. You brought everyone back. JTT's back. Mecca Buca's back. You have Jeremiah Smith coming in. Just felt like everything was getting towards Ohio State. Oh, by the way, too, it's at home. A home field advantage. Didn't matter. It just did not matter. I know a lot of folks are gonna make a big deal about this, about, "Oh, man, Ryan Day's fired, or Ryan Day's this." I will say this, sort of repeating what folks like Josh Pate has mentioned and what the guys in Cover 3 have mentioned as well. Ryan Day's not going anywhere, okay? You can't fire him. Like, what? Okay, he loses to Michigan 4 years in a row, and what, the execution team's gonna come to his office and off him off? Sounds pretty graphic, but that's the vibe I'm getting from Ohio State fans, where they want this guy, like, the guillotine comes down and he's disposed of. That's not happening. I'm not insinuating that's gonna happen. Ryan Day's completely safe. I My opinion of him has not changed. I still think he's the right guy for the job. If any if for any reason Ohio State fires him, it's gonna be for scandal. That's it. He's not getting fired for losing to Michigan 4 years in a row. I know Ohio State fans don't wanna hear that. I know they cringe at that, and they wanna throw stuff at the wall and probably break your TV if you're listening to this, or your phone. He's not going anywhere. Like, find me any administration dumb enough to fire a coach who's won a minimum, or gets an average of 9 games a year, or 10 games a year, if you take away the COVID year, around 10 games a year, has won the Big Ten championship game, has been to the national championship game once, could have played for one in 2022 if they were missed field goal away from beating Georgia. Like any athletic director, anyone, not even just Ross Bjork, who's the new athletic director there, came via Texas A&M. Like, that would be incredibly stupid and incredibly idiotic. Nobody's doing that. Like, the folks over there in Columbus, Ohio are not stupid. Like, they know, yes, it's not good, the optics aren't good, and, with Ryan Day losing these big games and whatnot, who's the definitive upgrade out there? Is it Mike Vrabel? Is it, you bring back Urban Meyer? Like, there's no other coach out there that is better than Ryan Day right now. Doesn't have the same resume as him. Like, there was a stat that I think Josh Pay brought up on the show years ago that really blew my mind, is that Ryan Day has the best starting record, or had the best starting record for his, first 4 or 5 years than even Nick Saban did. So that tells you how good of a coach he is, and how much of a resume he has. Like, think about this, like, how much success he has had outside of the whole Michigan problem. Again, he's been to a national championship, could have been to a second one, or in an alternate universe, he would have been in one. Maybe if the field goal goes in versus Georgia, multiple first round picks, success on offense, winning multiple games. He hasn't lost to Penn State, hasn't lost to Michigan State. So he's basically beaten all the other teams he's supposed to beat. You can say he lost to Oregon twice, both in conference this year and then out of conference a couple years ago. I'll grant you that. That'd be a kind of have an Oregon problem too. But the Michigan thing, it's different because obviously I'm not from Ohio. Right? I'm not from the state of Ohio. I'm not even from the state of Michigan. So I'm very much an outsider on this. But from what I've heard and people who I know have been associated with that rivalry, it's a big deal. When Michigan was losing, I had a buddy in high school who would always complain about, "Oh man, Michigan can't go over the hump, and Harbaugh can't do this or whatever," and it's been horrible. To me, in my head, I'm thinking, well, just because he hasn't done it doesn't mean he can't do it. And with Michigan and Harbaugh, things got scary during COVID. Right? There was the whole rumors going around he was going to get fired into the Rutgers game, that infamous Michigan Rutgers game during COVID 2020 happens, and they won the game. And a lot of folks believe, looking back at it, that, man, if Rutgers makes a field goal, Michigan probably ends up firing Harbaugh, and that national championship run, or I guess that run, well, actually, technically that run versus Ohio State didn't win the national championship till last year, but the Michigan run versus Ohio State, which is their streak right now, never happens. Um, so that's a little fascinating what if there. What if Rutgers in 2020 makes a field goal to win the game in regulation, not get into overtime versus Michigan? That's something I've learned about, I think, last summer, and that blew my mind. And still to this day, I still think about that. Because I actually remember watching that game too. But so going back to the whole Harbaugh thing, it was a problem for Michigan. It was a problem to beat Ohio State, and he wasn't getting it done. He eventually got it done. So that, to me, at least telegraphs to me, and should telegraph to you Ohio State fans, that just because Ryan Day hasn't got it done yet doesn't mean he can't do it. He certainly can do it. There's a path there. They just haven't done it yet. So that's easy for me to say, and it's like the equivalent of saying, "Man, I'm waiting for the sun to go down." Well, it's eventually going to happen. Like, that's the comparison here. You look at what happened at Ann Arbor, Michigan. They were having a problem with you, and then they eventually solved the problem, and you're the one who's having the problem, and now you have to find a way to solve it for your psyche, I guess. But like I mentioned, Ryan Day's not going anywhere. He's not getting fired or anything like that. He's not going away. Their postseason goals are still there. Yes, they're not making it to Indianapolis again for like the fourth straight years. That's another problem too. I mean, just think about it. Like they had C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, all this talent, and they've only been to Indianapolis once in that span, or actually twice. Never went there with C.J. Stroud at all. So that's another issue too. And you're seeing Penn State go there for the second time in the last decade. How about that? More than that in just a second. But it's gonna be rough. I said it on Twitter. It's gonna be a rough couple weeks in Columbus, Ohio, and Clemson, South Carolina. Don't worry, we'll touch on that game here in just a second. But hats off to Michigan, man. And here they go. A lot of momentum going into next year with Bryce Underwood coming in. It makes you wonder, will they be a factor in the portal, and could this be a team that's on the rise, a program that's once again rising from the ashes of what was this year and offseason to potentially being back to where they were just last year. So we'll see from Michigan and Sherrone Moore, huge win for them. As we merrily move along here, don't want to stick on these games too much. This is technically old news. This is like 3 days ago, so I'm not going to touch on these too much. But the Ohio State one, I needed to get that one. A lot of thoughts on there off my chest. Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Final score in this one, 28-14. Watch this one at home. We're actually, with the folks who I was with, we're at a local Miller's Ale House. Not a sponsor of the show, but figured out shout them out here. So had a few drinks there, had some food, came back. That's where we watched the majority of the Ohio State game. Then we came back for the ending, and just before the Auburn game came on. This one was confusing to me. Actually, Auburn won the turnover battle in this one. How about that? For the first time in like forever. I think Bama had 4 turnovers. I think Auburn had like 2, I believe, or at least 1. Payne Thorne interception. Of course, couldn't be a Auburn game without Payne Thorne turn the ball over, right? Of course, it happens in his final game and in his college career. And if you're an Auburn fan, thankfully we're getting rid of him. And it can't get any worse, right? But just confusing. So Auburn wins the turnover battle. Auburn defensively actually has a good effort. Like if you look at the box score, you look at the final score, and you hide the Auburn score, and you just look at the Bama scoring at 28 points. You go, Auburn must have made this game pretty competitive. They must have scored a lot of points and made Bama sweat. Not really. At least to an extent. The first 15 or 17 minutes were very, very competitive, at least defensively. Then Auburn eventually broke down, and Milroe had a big day on the ground. Defensively for Bama, going to get 4 turnovers, maybe the best performance all year from that defense, outside of maybe the LSU and perhaps the Missouri game. But good performance there. It was sluggish. Only way I can describe Bama's performance there, but they got it done. They did what they needed to do. They're 9-3. Obviously, since they're not going to Atlanta for wasn't it like the first time in has it actually been that long since Bama's not been to Atlanta? Been like 3 years or so. They go dark, so we don't know what happens, what their fate is. We will see come this Sunday what happens of that. Kind of a glimpse tonight in the playoff rankings. So, like I said, they go dark. And then Notre Dame, Ole Miss, South Carolina, they go dark now. So they are waiting for their fate. Notre Dame probably in the playoff, but they don't play until most likely, very likely the first round, because again they don't get a bye. So that's something they agree to. But Ole Miss, South Carolina, they go dark. And for Bama, again, solid defensive performance, offensively, sloppy. But you see with Jalen Milroe, and I'll move on to the Auburn part here, as this is probably the more fascinating one, is that with Milroe, and I was sitting with some folks who I was watching the game with, and they were criticizing Milroe and saying, oh, man, he sucks and terrible. I'm like, well, he's not good at throwing the football. He's not the best deep thrower of the football, and I mean, he's not terrible either. He's fine. But hey, when he runs the football, man, and his ability to, scramble around, make some plays, and he scored 2 rushing touchdowns, and I think it was actually all of their touchdowns, was from Milroe. Very effective. and, that's his best ability is run the football. Like, him running the football, doing his own read and QB power, that's just who he is. That's his best ability, and they're gonna need it. They're gonna need it for in the playoffs, and they're gonna be traveling to, like, South Bend, Indiana, or Columbus, Ohio. They're gonna need it. They're really gonna need it, and hopefully with a couple weeks rest, he can get even healthier. So very interesting to see what Bama does if they do end up beating those spots. So we will discuss that. Obviously, I'll do my playoff reaction to the rankings. Who knows? We might do it Sunday. Who knows? We might do a special edition, extra pod reaction. Stay tuned to that. But yeah, from the Bama side, a pretty simple defense, good offense, sloppy, but you did enough to pull away. Not much to say about the Auburn side. I mean, you had a good effort, probably the best effort in that stadium in 10 years, which ironically was the 55-44 game. Uh, just wasn't good enough. Payne Thorne turned the ball over multiple times in this game. Offensively, couldn't sustain drives. Couldn't throw the football a lot. I know a lot of folks, especially the ones who I was with, mentioned, man, Payne Thorne's really throwing the ball out of bounds a lot. I mean, based on what you've seen this entire year, can you not blame him for being more conservative in that point? I will echo something that Josh Pate mentioned, or what everyone else is mentioning. Next year's the year for Hugh Freeze. There's no way around it. There's no ifs, buts, or ands about it. The next year is going to be a sort of judgment year for Hugh Freeze. I know that sounds pretty dark. I know that doesn't. That's insinuating. I think he needs to be fired. That wouldn't be me per se. I would at least give him because knowing his entry point, right? Going by what Josh Pate always says with coaching hires is always entry point. When did Hugh Freeze enter? He entered the tail end or the end of the Brian Harsin era, which was filled of a lot of nothing, especially in recruiting. So he came in, had one of the worst rosters of all the P4. So literally had to paperclip and bubble gum and literally build. It's like you're building a building, build a program. And right now they're about, I'd say the skeleton's sort of there. I don't think the tenants are ready to move in yet, but the structures are there. Like you have the talent now. You have Cam Coleman. Pray none of them leave. That's another factor too. The portal, but you can also get players in the portal, which we will, I think, have on the docket to discuss later on, if I can recall. Yes, transfer portal is one of the last subjects here. Not the main topic, but certainly one we will discuss more of Auburn. But next year's the year for Auburn. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's like going the stretch of Auburn football since Brian Harsin has been there. So, well, actually, even the last year of Malzahn in 2020. So from there to now, the last 4 years, worst 4 years of Auburn football I've ever seen. Like it's like Purdue, like Indiana level bad. Not as bad as those programs, but that's kind of where you're trending. And Auburn is, unfortunately, next year doesn't get any better because I think the assumption is, with year three being the, Hugh Freeze and company, that's their goal. It's year three plan, similar to Miami this year, at least to an extent. That was the plan until it happened this Saturday. That was, put everything in, go hard in the portal. These younger guys have been recruiting. If they don't leave, they will be more mature going to a second year. That was the plan, and it still is the plan. But the fact that you went 5-7 was not on the docket. Now, interestingly, smartly even, back in the summer, I did the Auburn most reasonable scenario, best case and worst case. The worst case I had was actually 4-8. So that prediction was actually kind of spot on. Actually, the 4-8 worst case scenario. So here we are. Be interesting to see what they do in the portal. I'll touch on that here in a second. But going the stretch of Auburn football that you Auburn fans who have been experiencing, it's rough. It's tough, and I know that. I know a lot of you. Never thought this would ever happen to you. Sort of the way people thought about Tennessee before they got Josh Heupel. Man, I never in my wildest dreams would Tennessee football be just incredibly mediocre. And now, thankfully, they got Heupel, and now you've seen where they are. And if you're an Auburn fan, that's the blueprint, right? You go look at where Tennessee is. You could be where they are in a few years. It's unfortunately going to take a while now because things have gone worse. It's their second 5-7 season in the past 2 years, and yet another losing season, like 4 straight now. Like this decade for Auburn football has not been good. There's no way around it. I'm not saying obvious, but they've got to hit hard in the portal. Going to touch on that again. I'll literally repeat this again in the portal segment. It's not just them too. Every teams will be in the portal. So you want to be alone. is what I am trying to telegraph there. Georgia Tech, Georgia. I have this one on the upset alert as a code yellow, I believe, if I recall. I haven't actually, I think I posted these on Twitter, so I could actually just go back and re-look at these. I should have realized or should have remembered this. Scrolling down as we are doing this live, by the way, if you're here, welcome in again. As I've been saying, make sure you subscribe, like the stream, all of the things that we talk about on a daily basis. Trying to see, I'm pretty sure I put these out already. Okay, yeah. So I had the game as a code yellow. So I had concern about this game uh, going into the weekend, and I was rightfully justified in that. This is a fun game. Uh, I know we talk about, or at least the rule generally, is when we talk about the winners first, but man, that's off to Haynes King and Brent Key, man. It's a crazy year too. I know they finished 7-5, and they didn't complete the trifecta of beating three ranked teams. But man, the effort they gave on Saturday was great. You know, the 17-0 lead, Georgia storms back. They go into those just I don't know what to say, just a strange overtime. At least the setup is. I mean, it was a fun game. I mean, if you were a casual viewer, you probably had a lot of fun watching it, though you probably didn't appreciate the game going into early Saturday morning, the insane 8 overtimes. But hats off to Georgia. This was pretty impressive to see them pull this off and to get confidence, even a lot more confidence heading into their game against Texas. We will preview that here in just a second. Um, should I really talk about this because everyone else has talked about it? Yeah, I'll give my thoughts on this. Mentioned this on Twitter once the game was going on, and I think a lot of folks were bringing this up. The whole, stupid new overtime rules. Of course, if you don't remember history of this, the NCAA created this new overtime rule after this was in reaction to the Texas A&M LSU 7 overtime game to help shorten the game. Well, I don't know what it is. I mean, it's literally just after the third overtime, you go for two, and it's like, okay, you may as well put us in a time loop, and then eventually someone's gonna break it. It's stupid. I completely agree. It needs an overhaul. I don't think it needs to be the NFL rules. I don't think we need to have ties in the game. I don't think we're going that direction. But I agree for everyone else. I think a overhaul of the structure of overtime is needed. Not to mention officiating too, because there was once again some very strange calls in that game too. So good win for Georgia. Tough for Georgia Tech, but it's a solid year for them. Solid year. It's been fascinating to see Brent Key and that program rise up from where they were under Jeff Collins. Clemson, South Carolina, nailed it. Nailed it. Congrats to South Carolina. Shane Beamer, a 9-win season. How about that? First time since I think regular season since I believe Steve Spurrier overall. First 9-win season since the Muschamp era, and that was his second year, I believe. How about that? I agree with Pate. I think this is a playoff team. I think they're talented enough. Or I guess not talented enough, but they have the resume to get in. I mean, they have close loss to Bama, beat Texas A&M, beat Clemson, who was going to be in the ACC championship game, by the way. No thanks to Miami. They have a strong resume, man. If you're looking at the resume test, I think Thurs and Bama are certainly good enough to both be in. But I think South Carolina should be a playoff team. They probably won't, but truthfully, I agree with everyone else. I think they should be in. Don't know if the committee thinks that way, and we'll see in the rankings where they're positioned. But this has been interesting to see the rise. Talk about the rise of Georgia Tech football and Brent Key. Talk about the rise of South Carolina football under Shane Beamer. Just incredible to watch, man. And Lenora Sellers too. I'm not going to necessarily say I believe he's going to leave, because I know some folks have mentioned it, like guys like Josh Payne brought it up. There's theories going around that hey, watch out. Lenora Sellers might be on the move after this year. I don't think he will, because I think South Carolina values him a lot. So obviously they will probably renegotiate the NIL deal and maybe bump up the price a little bit. But he's a special player. I mean, he's a really special player. I mean, he can run around. He's a true dual threat as they come. Not the best passer, doesn't have to be. He's still young. He's still a youth. But in all of the best terms, that he can still develop and grow. Obviously, he's not going to the NFL draft right now, so he's a long way from that. But as a college quarterback, he's the best. He's one of the best right now. I know he won't be in New York for the Heisman Trophy, but if it was me, I'll put him on the ballot. I don't think he would win it, but he would be in attendance if he was going off if I were to fill out a ballot. He would be in attendance. I think he's that good. I think he is the best player on that team. That South Carolina defensive line once again proved once again why they're the best one in the SEC. And I think the guys over on Cover Three, Bud Elliott in particular, were way ahead of that than everyone else. So I'll clap for them for getting that right over the summer. Um, the Clemson side. I mean, it's kind of a sweet and sour deal. It's like it's sour that you lost to your rival at home again, but you're still in the playoff. You're going to Charlotte again, so yay! We're going back to Charlotte to face SMU, who's a favorite, by the way. Little spoiler alert there for the conference championship game preview segment. But yeah, the best I can describe Clemson right now. I like it's rough right now. Certainly, the results haven't been good enough, but you're going to Charlotte, so that's gotta work. That's gotta mean something, right? Um, the team who got Clemson to Charlotte, Miami, fell to Syracuse. Fun game. I was watching this. Actually, we were mainly watching this on our quad box. Once we got back from the bar that we were at, so we got back and we were watching this game, the Iron Bowl. I think mainly this game. Once the Iron Bowl became started to get more or lless competitive, this is probably, for all intents and purposes, the game of the day. Like this is very entertaining. It was, of course, Miami had that 21-0 lead. They lose it from Brown in Syracuse and Kyle McCord too. By the way, Kyle McCord, what a year he's having. That's a Heisman Trophy caliber performance too. I mean, he's having a kind of a career revival a little bit. How about that? What's up with that, right? You know, these numbers that Kyle McCord's putting up, but huge one for Fan Brown and company. Man, this is, by the way, quietly 9-3. And you know what? Josh Bay talked about this, and I may have mentioned this too back over the summer when we were doing previews and stuff. I don't think I talked a lot about Syracuse, but I do remember Pay talking about this. Syracuse had a very manageable schedule. Think Louisville last year, and here they are, and they're 9-3. Don't expect them to have this same amount of success next year because I'm pretty sure the schedule will change. But they took advantage of an easy schedule, or I shouldn't say easy because I know that's a really derogative word, but a very manageable schedule, and it took advantage of it, much like Indiana did. It took advantage of it. Two first-year head coaches, by the way, in the ACC and the Big Ten, Coach Sig and Fran Brown, both taking advantage of manageable schedules and winning 9+ games of it. So, for both. The Miami side to this one is pretty bad. I'm not going to go. I'm not really going to go like full scorched earth, like some of you Miami fans are, or some of the things that Josh Pete was saying back on this show. But I do agree with his comparison about comparing this Miami team to what 2023 LSU was, or last year's LSU team, because both of these teams have wasted Heisman level quarterbacks. I don't think Cam Ward's going to win the award. Actually, win the Heisman. I think that's probably going to be Travis Hunter. I've had to guess right now. But they've wasted both of these teams, ironically. LSU last year and then Miami this year have wasted Heisman level quarterback talent because of bad defense. The defense there is not good enough. I don't know if that means that Lance Guidry's getting canned or getting fired. I know, the times that Pate's had them on there because he's visited Miami multiple times. He's had both, all of the coaches on there. Shannon Dawson, who's the OC there, Lance Guidry, and Mario Cristobal. Lance Guidry sounds like he's a smart guy, and I'm not denying that, and Pate's even echo that. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. I can't even Josh Pate can't even explain what's going on with the defense. It's gone worse. They give up a lot of points. It seems like every single game, even the Wake Forest game a couple weeks ago, they were struggled a little bit in that one early. They eventually pulled away, but I don't know what to say there. Did they make a move there? Did they fire him? Did they move on from him? I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting week there in Coral Gables, but hats off to Syracuse, man. Fran Brown and company. Again, 9 wins, potentially 10 wins for the first time in like 8 years or whatever. Doesn't happen too often, but when the schedule, especially with now no more divisions, when the schedules for some of these teams kind of, becomes very favorable, they can take advantage of it. And Indiana and Syracuse are doing so. So hats off to them. That's a big deal. I'm not going to spend too much on this. Texas A&M, Texas, boring game. A fun atmosphere though. Fun atmosphere. I mean, I know a lot of folks make fun of A&M's traditions, and look, I agree. I think being an outsider, they're weird, but I'm not gonna diss the atmosphere. Is very much so electric. Field was filled up. I was wrong on the prediction. I thought A&M would win. I was totally wrong on that. Texas looked good. Defensively, looked really good. Offensively, sloppy. But that defense, though, best performance of the Texas defense this year that I've seen all year, and that's a good omen for them carrying themselves into the Georgia game. And seen a lot of folks, and even Pay brought this up too on this show, and I kind of agree with him. The stuff that people have been talking about with Mike Elko, and I kind of noticed this too with the individuals I was watching this game with, and even on Twitter. A lot of folks crapping on Mike Elko. I'm not. I still have a lot of faith in him. I still have confidence that he can eventually build A&M to where they should be. At least, granted, with the fan support and with the facilities and this, just overall brand of A&M football. But going back to my predictions back in the summer, I picked A&M, I believe, to go 8-4. So it's right within the realm. Actually, the record for the most reasonable was actually hit there. So I'm not surprised by this. It's what I thought. It was going to be a struggle. There's still a lot of time, and they're doing really well. They're doing a lot of things right there. Um, they're doing pretty well in recruiting. I think they will definitely be in the market for some portal additions as well. I have my opinions on overall opinion on the over A&M program going forward has not changed at all. Even with the fact they've lost to Auburn and now they lost to their rival. Thoughts on Michael hasn't changed. I think he's the right guy for the job. There's no indications he's not the right guy for the job. It's year one. And most years now, especially with the portal being a thing and NIL, you've now unfortunately have to give coaches 3 years to figure it out. He's got 2 more years to get this thing going, and I think he can. That's me saying that. I obviously I'm not that strange, so I can't look into the future. I don't know for sure he can get it done, but I think he can. I think Mike Elko is the right guy for the job, but he's gonna be given 2 more years. So this is year one. Then he has 2 more years left to probably get this thing figured out, and then we'll probably see. And that's it for the Week 14 reaction. There, the show's not over though. I'm just gonna take a little break here. Audio's not going out. Just get some water. And then we move into conference championship predictions. Boy, that should be fun, right? Yeah, should. So I get some water real quick, and then we're actually doing a pretty good pace here. I haven't checked. We're doing pretty good. Yeah, about 40 minutes. So got conference championship predictions. I got some thoughts on the portal. A couple of teams to watch here for the portal, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. Then I have Buccaneers Panthers reaction. So I'm gonna take some water real quick, and then we'll be right back. We'll say this as we kind of get back into the show here after I got some water real quick. Been pretty cold here in Jacksonville. It's been colder all around the country, especially in the southeast. Right now, this morning here it was like 32 degrees over there, just around freezing, so really chilly. Doesn't happen that often here. So, I mean, hey, at least it's happening during the best time of the year, or at least the best time for the cold weather to be in, which is the holidays. So at least it fits the mood. But to be honest, around like January, February, it's kind of get tired of it because the holidays are gone now, and then the vibe kind of becomes kind of boring. But yeah, it's been pretty cold down here. But it's definitely going to be cold in Indianapolis. This is where the Big Ten championship game is being held. Oregon, Penn State. Yes, that is correct. That's not a tie belt. That's not a College Bowl 25 sim, dynasty sim. Oregon is playing Penn State, not Ohio State. Shocking. So we will not get that rematch, at least in this format, much to the chagrin of many. But to someone who has been a fan of James Franklin and kind of a defender, good for him. Good for James Franklin. I know a lot of folks were making fun of him for struggling with Maryland early, but they disposed of them, so like they should have. The FanDuel number on this one is Oregon minus 3.5. Totally agree. These are 2 very talented teams. These are 2 of the best teams in the Big Ten. These teams, by the way, didn't play each other in regular season, so this is a very new matchup. So this is an exclusive matchup, at least at this point. So this is not a duplicate matchup. This is a brand new. These are two teams that have not faced each other. Is what I'm trying to say. Um, these are again two of the most talented teams in the Big Ten. These are two of the best coaching staffs in the Big Ten. It's James Franklin, Ian Lanning, two of the best head coaches in college football. Not saying they're elite head coaches, especially with James Franklin, because you got to be careful with the whole, is he properly rated or not? Which is, I think he is properly rated. He's not a good coach. I mean, he's a good coach. He's not an elite coach. He's a good coach. Just to make sure I'm putting the disclaimer there. Um, I believe again these are two of the best staffs in really all of college football, especially on offense too. You have Andy Kolnicki for Penn State, Will Stein for Oregon. What can Penn State do to win this game? Because it's going to be very tough. Obviously, I mean Oregon very strong defensively. They have a good offensive line that's now getting healthy. Dylan Gabriel is a machine. He's not Bert Kreischer though. That's a different type of machine. Dylan Gabriel is a machine in terms of football. Obviously, this is his last year of eligibility. He will go on to wherever. Obviously, probably not going to be a good pro player, but that's not really relevant here. Really good college quarterback. Again, Oregon defensively, best defensive unit they faced all year, Penn State. So then, I mean, that's obviously the matchup there. It's Penn State's O line versus Oregon's defensive line. Can Katron Allen, can Nick Singleton? I mean, that's the reason why you brought those guys back every single year to keep them healthy, and especially in a situation like this where you want to win a Big Ten championship game and get that first round bye. So, and to also, I just prove the naysayers wrong. While you're at it, do I believe they can do it? They certainly can. They have to get the talent there, Penn State. Have the running backs to do it. They certainly have the personnel to do it. It's whether or not can they do it. Interesting to see. I look at this too from a Drew Hour situation because again, a lot of folks who I've talked to personally don't believe Drew Hour is all that. They believe he is an average quarterback. They don't believe he has much of an NFL career, contrary to whatever folks have heard. So, okay, this is his game. This is his time to shine. He has not performed well. I will agree with that. He's not performed well in these big moments, especially in the past couple of years, mainly Ohio State and some Michigan in the past. This is his time. This is it for Drew Aller to kind of, I'm going to say it's like a do or die situation for him, but it's at least to help get people to understand that he's a talented player. He was a 5-star kid for a reason. He has not been the reason most of the time that they've been losing games, and in fact, they've only lost one game, which is Ohio State. He needs to play big here. He needs to really step it up. He needs to have the game of his life to be the best the best defense in all of college football in Oregon. Can he do it? I don't know if he can do it. Obviously, he can do it. It's just whether or not he will do it. I don't know if he will. So that's where it comes down to, really, for the Penn State side. It's Drew Aller and that offense just getting enough. Run the football, getting those crucial 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, 4th and 3rd and 5 less. I think will be ideal. You're going to have the personnel to do it. For Oregon, on the Oregon side here, if Penn State were to win this game, it's frustrating. Guy Dylan Gabriel, it's getting pressure on him. Getting sacks. Doing what Ohio State kind of did. There's a frustrating him, and sort of what Wisconsin did too. Can Penn State do that? I think they can. I don't know if they will. The number on this game, according to College Football Nerds, is actually interesting. It's right around the spread. Is minus 3.6 in favor of Oregon. So on a neutral field, they will favor Oregon just slightly. I thought about this game, obviously. Personally, I would love to see Penn State win this game because I think James Franklin's a good coach. He's not an elite coach, not a great coach. He's a good coach. Based on what I have seen from them and knowing what type of team this is and what they have done versus Ohio State, granted, it's not the same as Oregon. It's obviously not a clear carbon copy, but talent-wise, it's very similar, right? You look at the 24/7 talent composite; they're both up there as they're up there in the top 5. So you're facing once again another top 5 caliber team. Well, obviously, their number 1 team for a reason. I'm going to pick Oregon to win and cover, but that's not an indictment on Penn State either. Because again, I think these are 2 very good teams. I expect this to be a very close game, and very clearly Vegas, FanDuel, clearly agrees with me that it's gonna be a close game, and covering means not necessarily it's gonna be like a, what, 45-10 game. Probably since it's a 3-point spread, like, covering means, like, what, winning by 6 or 7, so generally still probably a close game, so, like, 27-20, um, 26-20, something like that, 26-21, so generally that's the score I'm thinking of here. Again, Penn State were to win this game and are to prove that they are, a program that can still, once in a while, maybe beat one of these teams. Of course, the segment on them is that they can do it. Not that they can't do it, just they haven't done it. They can do it. There is certainly a path there. Again, it's if Drew Aller can play the game of his life, and then his running backs can have a big day versus Oregon. It's gonna be tough because again, you're going against the best defense of all of college football. I do believe they will do enough, but I don't think they'll be able to win the game, at least to my opinion. But yeah, I think Oregon's gonna win the game if they cover, but I do expect Penn State to perform at a very high level. Um, I don't foresee them getting blown out. I would be very surprised by that, but I do expect Penn State to play at a very elite level. Though I don't think they'll win the game. I think Oregon. I think they have the better quarterback, and they have a little bit better, um, clearly better defense because again they're really high up there in all the categories. But man, if Penn State has running backs, if those two, Allen and Singleton, if they can just get going and they can get some of those yards and they can, you know, I guess, I don't know, get some yards against Oregon. I don't know what I was thinking there, but my mind just kind of barked there. But there's a path there. There is a path there, and again, it's with those two guys, and that's again, the reason why you keep on bringing them back, why they came back too. They could be a factor, and so is Tyler Warren, the tight end. He's also got to be a factor as well. So I'm gonna pick Oregon to win the game and cover, but like I've been saying, I do believe Penn State will play at an elite level, and I do expect too that Nick Singleton and Keyshawn Allen will have a decent enough day. I think. No, that's a very short preview, but I don't want to keep this show from going over 2 hours. So there's that. The SEC championship game on ABC. It's Georgia Texas. It's a rematch. Texas minus 2.5. The CFP Nerds model, by the way, the College Ball Nerds model has Texas minus 7. So it's a little bit higher. So Georgia won the first game, if you remember. I'm sure a lot of guys do. 30, I think it was 30-15 or something like that. 31-15. That was at home in Austin for Texas. This one to me is actually kind of simple. I know a lot of folks be looking at Georgia and saying, "Man, Georgia's a team that's in takeoff mode. They're a strong defense. Their offense is they can have a good day versus Texas. They've done it before and whatnot. And just because you won one game doesn't mean you can't do it again." I think that's kind of false, especially in college football too. I mean, it's not like the NFL where it's yes, that rule applies about the tournament teams twice. Though my Buccaneers have proven that wrong. But in college football, it's a little bit different. It really is. It's hard to beat teams twice, and this is a rematch too. Just because, or just to make sure you guys know that. Sure you do. I think that edge is going to hold up here. I like where Texas is at. I don't like where Georgia is at. I think they're kind of like a fake team that's in takeoff mode. Now there are teams that are in takeoff mode, like Tennessee's one right now. South Carolina is one of them. Like those are teams that I would label as true and tried and true takeoff teams in takeoff mode. I don't think Georgia is. I think they're a fake takeoff team, or at least a fake team in takeoff mode. I like where Texas is at. I think Texas is a takeoff mode type team. I think defensively they're playing really well. Offensively, they're getting a little bit better. I think Quinn Ewers is trying to get more healthier. The running back situation there with Meisner, he was stepped in because of the injuries they've had there. He's playing pretty well. I like Texas here to win. I think they get the revenge, and I think they cover. This game, too, sort of reminds me, at least the dynamics here, not necessarily similar, but kind of similar to when Georgia faced Auburn is in 2017 when Georgia got destroyed by Auburn at home for Auburn and Jordan Hare. Then they come back to Atlanta, and it's those two teams meet again, and Georgia finds a way to pull away. I think the score in that game was like what 35-7, 28-7. That's the kind of vibe I have of this game too. That's the sort of vibe I'm getting with this game. I do believe Georgia will win. I mean, I see similar to Georgia and those and that SEC and then that SEC championship game. I think uh, I think Texas is going to do the exact same thing. I think they pull away. I think they win. I think they cover, and I do believe both teams will be in the playoff. Um, we'll find it very hard to imagine the playoff committee letting Georgia out of the playoff, and they shouldn't be. I think I agree with Peta here that any, especially in the Big Ten, the SEC, the loser of both teams, the winner and the loser should both be in. If the loser of both is out, there will be a massive outcry, and that's where the whole theory comes into play about. At that point, the SEC and the Big Ten would just split and create their own playoff, and that's where the chaos comes in, and this whole sport gets turned upside down even more. So, so yeah, I like Texas to win there. I think they cover. SMU, Clemson. SMU's actually a favorite here. I don't think a lot of folks need to realize that. According to FanDuel, by the way, they're not a sponsor of the show, nor do I. Am I encourage you guys to use their money and bet on teams? But I'm just doing this for prediction purposes. SMU -2.5 against Clemson. To me, this one really comes down to which Clemson's going to step up. Is it the Clemson we got versus Louisville and against Georgia or South Carolina? Or is it going to be the Clemson team that played against, Wake Forest, NC State, Florida State, App State, Virginia Tech? Is it that team? Because the Clemson to me is very much so the definition of like a Jekyll and Hyde team, or I guess a two-faced team. It's like, okay, you've seen Clemson dominate competition or dominate teams in which their talent gap is a lot. There's a bigger talent gap there, or at least the worst teams or the really bad teams. But you've also seen Clemson struggle against or lose against the teams that are higher caliber talent than them or equal to them. So like in your Clemsons or Louisvilles or South Carolinas. SMU is not that. Their record indicates they're a good team. They certainly are, and it's up to Ray Ashley and company. They're a really good team. Um, I don't know if SMU is that same caliber team that like a Louisville is, or heck, even a uh, even a South Carolina. I don't know why I blanked on that. Um, I do have concerns about SMU in terms of again, they're going. This is the most physical team they faced all of year for the most part. It's a very good defensive front, good defensive unit. Clemson offensively, yes, they're still limited, and yes, Kate Klubnik is sort of what he has been. Though better this year, I'll give him credit for that. Him and Garrett Riley. Um, I think Clemson's going to win. I think Clemson will win this game somehow, some way. I think they win. I think they cover. The CFP Nerd model disagrees with me on that. They think SMU should be favored by 2 touchdowns. I disagree with that. Nothing against the guys over at College Football Nerds, but just what I have seen of Clemson and what they are capable of, and the fact that so much has been going on there with Clemson and Dabo, and everyone's frustrated and whatnot. And now here they are, sort of backed into the ACC championship game. No thanks to Miami. I think they'll take advantage of it. So again, like Clemson here, I think they win. I think they cover. Nothing against SMU. I just don't. The whole talent gap here, and again, SMU. For those of you who don't remember, this was a team that was in the G5 last year, so they're now in the P4. And yes, that while they have adjusted better than I thought they would have, this is still a pretty tall task for them. Like, there's no doubt in my mind this is very tough. And if they win this game somehow, it's going to be because of it's going to be because of the quarterback there. Like he's and that offense of Real Ashley. I mean, that's a tough task too, especially going against a pretty good defensive front there for Clemson. So I like Clemson to win here and cover. Hopefully, it's an entertaining game. But it is interesting. The CFP Nerds model loves SMU. So I disagree with that model there. Mountain West Championship game here. This is on Friday. Boise State, UNLV. These teams played each other a couple weeks actually, not a couple weeks ago, but a couple months ago. Once again, same principle with the Texas-Georgia game. Hard to beat teams twice. BYU won this. I mean, not BYU. They're in the Big 12. Boise State won this game back in September. I think it was October, actually. The biggest, at least up to that point, G5 game of the year. They won that game, and of course, Ashton Dent, he's been a machine. Again, I'm not quite sure, but he's been a machine. Currently, he's going to win the Doak Walker Award, Best Running Back Award. I think he's got that thing stilled up. Probably not gonna win the Heisman, but we'll see. I like Barry Odom. Barry Odom is a very good coach, very good defensive coach. He's been around for a while. He was at Arkansas for a couple years, and then he moved on to UNLV. Before that, he was at Missouri, taking over for Gary Pinkel. Um, he is going to be, by the way, in line for some of these coaching jobs that are being coaching positions that are open, both assistant coach and head coach. This is a showcase game for him to, especially to prospective um, fan bases. No, a lot of you guys aren't going to tune into this game, but if I were a fan who has a head coaching opening, I would pay attention to this game. I would watch it, especially for Barry Odom. And again, I go back to the whole it's hard to be teams twice. And again, Barry Odom is a defensive-minded coach, and I believe he'll have a plan in place to stop Ashton Genty. I think the fact that they faced him early in the year helps them, benefits them because again, it's same for BYU, for Boise State too. Why did I say BYU again? It's same for Boise State too. Again, it's you're familiar with them, but I think for a defensive coach and a team that lost the game, they have the advantage because they know what they did wrong and what can they improve in. So because of that, I think Boise State is going to lose. I think they will fall. I think UNLV will win the game. I think they cover, and this would be a Barry Odom special and a Brian Marion special too. Brian Marion is also another highly sought after commodity in the coaching world. So again, if you're a fan of any school that has a assistant coach opening, OC in particular, or head coaching opening, may want to tune in here. May want to tune into the game here. By the way, CFP Nerds has this as a basically a pick'em, pretty much, with Boise being just ever slightly favored by point 3. So I take UNLV here, and I think they win. I think they cover. And that's on the road too, so that's with home field advantage. I think UNLV will be able to handle it. So how about that? Last game here, Utah. I mean, not Utah. They were the preseason favorite here to be here, and being a former Pac-12 team, and there is one in this game. It's not Utah, nor is it Colorado. It's Arizona State, Iowa State, as it should be, right? Iowa State. Josh Pate's favorite college football team. Of course, he rightfully picked them to be there, and here they are. They made it, and they are a -2.5 favorite versus Arizona State, or excuse me, Arizona State's a favorite over Iowa State. So, what do you make of this game? So this to me is interesting. So Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, again, a good story. I've touched on this before, um, with his history being there, and how much of a disaster Arizona State was after Herm Edwards leaves, and that whole just a complete disaster of a program. What's the matchup in this game here? What are the key players here in this game? It's a very important game too, because again, the winner in this game is, for all intents and purposes, in the playoff, first round bye. The loser probably out. So in this case, Arizona State and Iowa State, it's a win. It's a win and you're in situation. So who are the key players for Iowa State? Well, kind of easy. It's Rocco Becht. He's having a very good year. 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Could be a potential portal player here. We'll see. He could have went in last year. That's something that I believe, Josh Payton revealed not too long ago, actually a few months ago, and he could have gone to portal, went anywhere. Um, he's a very good player. Iowa State's a very good team. Mike Campbell, big fan of his, very good coach. This is their second trip, by the way, to the Big Ten championship game. Not Big Ten, Big 12. The second time in this decade too. So how about that? Arizona State first appearance in a conference championship game since, has it been 2013? I believe. Is that when they played? Was it Stanford or something? I don't remember, but they've not been in this situation a long times. I'm trying to say, and again, hats off to Kenny Dillingham and that whole staff there. Again, what happened under when Herm Edwards was there, and just what he left behind was awful, awful, just horrible. And then having this big turnaround from going 3-9 last year, and losing Rashada, and then you bring in Sam Levitt, and he's playing a lot better option. Of course, Scatabo, the running back there, is having a fantastic year. 1,000-yard rusher. Tyson, the receiver there. I had a tough time picking this game because again, it's the main matchup here is going to be stopping the Arizona State offense. Can Iowa State do it? Can Matt Campbell and that defensive brain trust there? Can they get it done? Because I can trust Rocco Becht. I can trust him. He's been very efficient for them. I don't know if I can trust their defense. Because I mean, you saw you saw Houston get to them. I believe that was them. Let me double check the losses here, um, just to make sure I got these right. So yeah, not Houston. They didn't play Houston. Texas Tech. Well, they did play Houston, but you know, Texas Tech got to them. They were able to keep the game low scoring. Kansas was a shootout in Arrowhead. I mean, you saw what Jane Daniels did, and you wonder, can Sam Levitt do that? Jane Daniels, for the record, put up almost 200 yards passing. So can he, um, being Sam Levitt, do that? Um, I don't know. Could happen. Kansas, sort of like Arizona State, very much a rushing team. I mean, Devin Neal had like 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's the recipe for Arizona State. They're to pull this off. They were to actually win the game. That's the recipe. Do what Kansas did. Run the football. You have the talent there to do it, especially with Scatabo being there. For Iowa State, there's a path there too. And it's Rocco Beck having a very good game. That offense playing well, and that defense getting some crucial stops there, late in the game, especially if it's a low scoring game. So this one was tough for me to pick. Really, I could have gone either way. Could have gone Arizona State, could have gone Iowa State. I initially thought Arizona State. I mean, they're favored, according to CFP Nerds, they're a point .9 favorite. So it's a very small margin of error there, much like the Boise State UNLV game. I flip flopped on this one. I thought Arizona State initially, Iowa State, Arizona State. As a fan of both of these coaches, again, like Kenny Dillingham, like Matt Campbell, this was tough. This is really tough. So I'm going to pick Iowa State to win the game outright, and I think they do cover. I'm not Ohio State. I'm not a Iowa State homer like Josh Pate is. I'm not a fan. Though I'm a fan of Matt Campbell. I think Iowa State's having a very good year. It's a team I was very high on in the preseason, much like Pate was. But again, I'm not a fan like he is. But I'm going to pick Iowa State here. I think they win. I think they cover, and they'll be in the playoff, getting a first round bye. So how about that? And that's it for the conference championship predictions. There, we finished it up. Don't think I'm missing anything. I'm not picking any of the other G5s, but the Boise State one's important just because of the significance and whatnot. But that's all of them. May post these on Twitter later just for future reference. Transfer portal. Trying to think. Should I discuss that? Should I wait until Thursday? Maybe I could talk about it here real quick. I mean, while we're already here, mentioned it earlier. Some of the teams to look at for quarterback. Obviously, Auburn's one. Miami, because Cam Ward's moving on, and the future of quarterback for either of these teams I'm talking about are not on the roster right now. Some of them need to leave. Auburn, for example, Holden Geriner is in the portal. Don't believe Hank Brown's in the portal. I believe he's still there. It seemed like he was going to leave, but according to him, he has not left. But Holden Geriner or Geriner, the Brian Harsin committee, has been there for a while too. The Brian Harsin player out. A couple of other players for Auburn are out. Don't think any other players have left since I checked. Let me actually pull up Twitter real quick just to make sure no other movements have been made for Auburn as we are live right now, by the way. If that wasn't obvious, if you're listening to this on the old YouTube, yeah, I don't think I've seen anything yet. So, I mean, there's some players been leaving. Of course, everyone's been entering the portal, whatnot. Not Miller Moss. Yeah, it is Miller Moss. So he's in the portal too. So he's out there. Salter, the quarterback of Liberty's in there, I believe. The quarterback from Washington State's there, by the way. Washington State's OC is going to Oklahoma, so that's connect the dots there. It's kind of obvious. Um, but yes, Auburn's gonna be in the market for a portal quarterback. Miami, obviously, LSU, duh, and so is USC. USC will be in the market for a portal quarterback too. I think, maybe, but those are some teams there. Some teams to pay attention to, at least for quarterback wise. Auburn, LSU, Miami, any number of guys not named. The year Washington State quarterback who's going probably with his OC to Oklahoma. So that one's off the table. Would also assume Florida State will be in the mix too, maybe. We'll see. Bama, probably not. Think that they're fine. But yeah, LSU, Auburn, Miami, those are three big ones. Can any of those guys who are on the portal right now, again, Salters from Liberty, Miller Moss, like, those are probably some names here that you're gonna be looking at, and they will be tied to those schools. Don't necessarily mean they're gonna go there, it's not a guarantee, but they will be attached to those, and you can get all the information from the um, other specific team sites and whatnot. So if you want more information on that. Real quick here, and then we'll get out of here. Bucs Panthers are at reaction. This one 26-23 in overtime. Fun game. Bucky Irving arrived, had his best day rushing. Baker struggled a little bit. Very sloppy, 2 interceptions. Defensively, they came out big here. Um, the late fumble from Chuba Hubbard. You know, just gonna linger on here at the Panthers real quick. Man, I just feel bad for them, man. I was there back back in September for a game. So I can, scout ahead here with both of them and the Chargers, who the Buccaneers do play at some point. I just feel so bad for them. I mean, just the same atmosphere was. I mean, it was fine, but it just seems lifeless. Somewhat just it's kind of sad, kind of depressing. No, it was still fun to be there, but man, it just sucks the fact that had this game. They're putting themselves well into position to win the game in overtime because in overtime rules, unless you don't score, if you don't score, you just have the period. So the time runs out, then you have to end the game, right? Because of TV rules and whatnot, the NFL procedure. And for the Panthers, man, it's just you were one Chuba Hubbard one fumble from winning that game, and Tampa got a gift. Chase McLaughlin once again stepping up big for the Buccaneers, one of the best kickers in the league. Certainly, I think his field goal percentage is like really high, like in the 80s, like high 80s. So how about that for Tampa? For the longest time, didn't have a field goal kicker, right? Like just if you're a Buccaneers fan like me, you know how special this is and how rare this is for Tampa to once again have a good field goal kicker. Again, I thought Baker had his worst game as a Buccaneer, at least one of his worst games, and he was able to overcome that somewhat. Bucky Irving had a huge game, got hurt though, so we'll see if he'll be back for the Raiders game this weekend, which is now the worst team that Tampa will be facing. So, yeah, that's kind of it. Fun game, an overtime game, sloppy game, but I guess the big takeaway is that Tampa offensively, when Bucky Irving and Rashard White and Sean Tucker, when those guys get the ball, they're electric. And I think Bucky Irving showed you why he is the future for Tampa. And with the rest of this schedule and the way it looks, yes, there's some tough games there. Dallas, obviously, they're kind of a team that's surging a little bit. It's a relatively manageable schedule. So reasonably, and given the Falcons lost again this weekend, so the playoff mix there in the NFC South is once again very uh, kind of confusing right now. But there's a path there. Don't feel good about it, but there's certainly a path. And the reason why I don't feel good about it is because Atlanta does have the head-to-head result because they're 2-0 versus Tampa this year. So that's sort of a tiebreaker, but there's still a path there. There's still a path. It's a weird path, but there's certainly a path there to be had for Tampa. Much like last year, can this team start playing its best football late in the year, and then of course, going to the playoffs, and we'll see from there. But they have a game this weekend versus the Raiders, which is scary. Scary team. A lot of folks think of them as one of the worst teams, but they have some interesting weapons there. Brock Bowers is no slouch. I mean, he's pretty good, but certainly a team that also has a lot of issues. We'll talk about them on Thursday. But that's the show today. That's the show. Let's see what we're clocking in here. Hour and 8 minutes. So we got all of that information in 1 hour and 8 minutes. Guess I'll admit I would like to preview those games a little bit more. The conference championship games, I have more thoughts on them. But I wanted to keep this show a little bit, not too crowded and whatnot. So I wanted to keep it less than an hour. But I think I did a fairly good job of previewing those, even though it wasn't in depth. But I'll post those later on Twitter. I'll post this obviously on the, Spotify and whatnot. So until Thursday, until then, hopefully it'll warm up here in Jacksonville because it is pretty cold. Even right now, as I'm live right now, I'm recording this at 2:00 in the afternoon Eastern time. So until Thursday, I'll give you guys my thoughts on Skeleton Crew. I'll make sure to watch that. Obviously, I will. Being a Star Wars fan, of course, I'll watch it. I'll find a way to watch it. It's 2 episodes. I'll get my thoughts on both. We'll get into more of the coaching news on Thursday and maybe some more thoughts on the conference championship game. So until then, until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy your Wednesday. Until then, take care. And I will see you guys next time on, well, maybe perhaps this time on